Hello, my name is Tyler, and for this assignment, I will critique the Iona Theater production of Henrik Ibsen's Ghost of the Four Aristotle Elements from his Poetics, which is plot, characters, theme, and spectacle. I'm not going to summarize the play as we talked in class, but instead offer my opinion on what worked and what didn't, and why, with suggestions and how we can improve, how I think they can improve. So, let's start with the plot. So Aristotle breaks the plot into four components: exposition, conflict, climax, and denouement, which we covered. So in this production, the exposition did establish the backstory. So Miss Alving's dead husband, his secret affairs, and Oswald's return. However, I did feel that the plot was sort of rushed. I mean, I know they had to condense a lot of the play for their own edition and how they wanted to go along with the play, but I felt like the pacing was still a little uneven given that fact. Like one moment we were deep in conversation about duty and morality, and then the next we had jumped forward without kind of enough breathing room, essentially, for like the tension to eventually settle. So I felt like that the structure was all over the place in that sense. Um, Also, multiple characters: Miss Alving, Oswald, Pastor Manners, even the maid, Regina, um, each had their own extended monologues. And so, while the monologues would reveal like their inner conflict and what they had going on in their past, um, I felt like they competed with each other because it was one monologue, then a group meeting, and then another monologue right after. Kind of, instead of it being cohesive, it kind of like they kind of like canceled out each other, kind of, and it felt like I couldn't understand um Regina's monologue and then have to go to Miss Alving or Pastor Manders when they were speaking their mind. It kind of conflicted on like understanding what was going on. um So my suggestion to improve this plot would be the director tightening transitions between monologues and allowing more silence or maybe physical action um, to progress instead of just jumping right into another conversation. Let the audience kind of like absorb what just happened a little longer. Like feel the weight of what has just been said before moving on to the next character. Um, I feel like that was very important. And then while we're on the topic of characters, Aristotle valued characters as vehicles for the plot. So I want to just separate the characters as written from the actors' portrayals. So Ibsen's characters are complex. So Miss Alving is torn between the truth and reputation. Um, Oswald is a tragic dying man from his father's previous sins, essentially. And Pastor Manders is a hypocrite hiding behind his faith. So now the actors, I like we talked about, they are college students, so I wasn't critiquing their acting ability. However, I felt there were moments when their physical actions or body language didn't match what they were saying or like what the scene required. Like I felt like they were saying one thing and their body language or the way that they were emphasizing it wasn't completely matching with what the script was essentially saying. Um, like for example, during Oswald's emotional breakdown, I thought his body remained a little too still and relaxed. His voice conveyed desperation, but like his posture, his like attitude, kind of remained the same. Um, So, like in another scene, like Miss Alving confessed her guilt while standing with her hands like casually at her sides. So I again that one, I also like you're conveying all this emotion, but your body kind of is just standing still. So I felt like that was another aspect. Um, so I think that a suggestion would be the actors could benefit from more physical rehearsal, like specifically exercises that connect emotional states to body language, If a character is falling apart, let their body show it, like Oswald, like trembling hands, turned shoulders, the inability to stand. We kind of saw that towards the end with Oswald, but in general, we didn't really see that throughout most of the play. When he finds out, like when he knows and he's telling Miss Alving that he has some sort of sickness from his dad, we didn't really see that conveyed when he was telling her. So that's another thing I would critique about the play. Third, I would critique is I'll talk about is the theme first. So to me, the theme of Ghost is not really about disease or even adultery. I think the central theme is about the impossibility of escaping the past when the past is built into your very own body and home. So the ghosts are not supernatural spirits, but they are inherited lies, repressed memories, and biological fate. What we saw with Oswald, biological fate, repressed memories with Miss Alving, and inherited lies, essentially, with Regina. Mrs. Alving tried to escape her miserable marriage by building an orphanage in her husband's name, which was a lie, disguised as charity. Oswald tried to escape by living abroad as an artist, but in the end, the father's syphilis, basically, or disease, I'm assuming it's syphilis, is inside Oswald's blood, and the father's affairs live inside Regina's identity, so the past, not outside them, it is them, essentially. So the production did convey this theme partially, especially through the dialogue, but again, the rush plot kind of weakened the slow, suffocating dread that the theme requires. Ibsen wants us to feel trapped, and when the plot jumps too quickly, I feel like we're losing that feeling of the walls like closing in. So again, I think obviously more time allotted for this play would have been, again, perfect. But again, it's a college rendition, so I didn't mind it completely. And then finally, the spectacle. So the production used a single set, which was the Alving family living room. While this is true to Ibsen's original design, I believe it does limit the play's creativity. We are told about major offstage events, the fire at the orphanage, the planned hotel for the seamen, Regina leaving to find work, but we never see any of it. We basically have to imagine everything that they're talking about because we only see this living room. Now, I understand small theater productions have budget constraints, but even with a single set, there are creative solutions. So, like, for example, we could have heard the orphanage fire through sound effects. We saw it. We heard a little bit of the cackling flames. We saw, like, the light shine in the back, and that was basically it. We could have seen, like, maybe like a smoke machine or something, pieces of paper maybe when they open the door burning. I would just give them more of a visual, like, adaptation, visual help, I think. Similarly, for the Hotel for Seamen, it's described as a hopeful project, but without any visual representation, it remains kind of abstract. A simple prop like a blueprint on the wall that slowly gets removed or torn could have been symbolized for, like, that hope of dying, that hope dying, essentially. So again, I think they should use sound and offstage action to expand the world beyond the living room. Let us hear the fire. Let us see, like, the smoke going on. Let's hear a ship horn or the blueprint being torn or something. The set kind of felt like a cage, kind of, but we're just limited to that creativity. But again, like I said before, it's a college rendition, so I guess in an actual play, like, I think they got the job done still. And finally, to conclude, I think the Iona Theater production of Ghosts has a strong source of material and a committed amount of student actors. However, like I previously stated, the plot felt rushed and disjointed, the body language sometimes contradicted the dialogue, and the single set limited the spectacle. The theme of inherited guilt did come through, but it could have been more powerful with better pacing and more creative offstage audio. But again, I still have to congratulate the Ion Theater production. It was still a very well made play. Honestly, it was my first play that I ever actually saw, so I think they did a pretty good job still. And again, I would see it again. So yeah, that's my critique and opinion, my suggestions. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you.